Hello everyone, welcome to Earth Archives. Today, we're going to share the story of a legendary mathematician who, with his talent and intuition, created remarkable mathematical miracles. He is the Indian math genius, Srinivasa Ramanujan. Ramanujan, who passed away on April 26, 1920, at the age of just 32, left behind an endless and priceless legacy in the world of mathematics during his short life. Despite not having formal university education, he set magical records in the history of mathematics. His discoveries were not only the essence of mathematical theory, but were also simple and beautiful, like works of art. To this day, Ramanujan's achievements continue to inspire countless mathematicians, and one of the most prestigious awards in the field of mathematics is named the Ramanujan Prize. In today's story, we will take you through the legendary life of Ramanujan and explore how this mysterious mathematical genius, with only intuition and inspiration, reached the pinnacle of mathematics without formal academic training. The legendary mathematical genius. When it comes to the mathematical prodigy Ramanujan, his beginning was far from surrounded by any genius aura. He was born on December 22, 1887, in the town of Erode in Tamil Nadu, India, to a poor Brahmin family. The title Brahmin might sound prestigious, but his family had no wealth to speak of. His father was a small shopkeeper who worked from dawn till dusk, earning only 20 rupees a month, just enough to feed the family. Imagine this. 20 rupees had to stretch to support a household of all ages, and life was tight. They probably couldn't even afford a decent table. Yet, who could have predicted that from such humble beginnings, a future mathematical genius would emerge? Ramanujan's story truly blossomed from the dirt of poverty. As a child, Ramanujan didn't show any remarkable traits. He was quiet and just like any other ordinary child. It wasn't until he entered school at the age of 10 that he started to show signs of being different. While other kids were kicking stones on the playground, he was focused on the numbers in his textbooks and became fascinated by mathematics. His passion for math can be credited to two university student lodgers who stayed at his house. These two would often talk about profound topics and casually lend him some math books. Little Ramanujan would eagerly flip through these books, his eyes wide open, and the formulas and theorems inside seemed like magic to him, pulling him into the world of mathematics. From that moment, his mind was ablaze with numbers, constantly thinking about how to solve this and that, while other subjects lost all their appeal. As a child, Ramanujan didn't show any remarkable traits. He was quiet and just like any other ordinary child. It wasn't until he entered school at the age of 10 that he started to show signs of being different. While other kids were kicking stones on the playground, he was focused on the numbers in his textbooks and became fascinated by mathematics. His passion for math can be credited to two university student lodgers who stayed at his house. These two would often talk about profound topics and casually lend him some math books. Little Ramanujan would eagerly flip through these books, his eyes wide open, and the formulas and theorems inside seemed like magic to him, pulling him into the world of mathematics. From that moment, his mind was ablaze with numbers, constantly thinking about how to solve this and that, while other subjects lost all their appeal. The mysterious connection between mathematics and inspiration. Speaking of the mathematical genius Ramanujan, despite his impressive achievements in the world of numbers, he was a disaster in other subjects. He had never received formal mathematical training. Everything in his mind was self-taught. As a result, when it came time for university entrance exams, he completely stumbled. The variety of subjects in the exam felt like alien languages to him, and he couldn't bring himself to show any interest in anything other than mathematics. As time passed, life didn't treat him kindly. His family was poor, and he had no source of income, making life increasingly difficult. Imagine this genius, unable to afford paper and pens, going to a temple, squatting on the floor, using chalk to do math. The scene must have been striking. The sunlight shining on the weathered stone tiles, him holding chalk in one hand and wiping his sweat with the other, formulas scattered everywhere. The temple-goers probably watched in disbelief, wondering what in the world he was doing. But strangely enough, this period of poverty didn't extinguish Ramanujan's love for mathematics. If anything, it fueled it even more. He once said that all of his inspiration came from the guidance of his family's goddess, which sounds quite mystical. He shared several mysterious experiences, saying that he would talk to this goddess in his dreams, with her laughing and sending him new ideas. Every time he woke up, his mind would be filled with astonishing formulas. When faced with problems he couldn't solve, he would close his eyes, meditate, and pray, as if calling the goddess for help. Remarkably, this method seemed to work. The goddess would somehow provide him with the guidance he needed, and the fog in his mind would clear, revealing the answers. It was as if he had applied a mysterious filter to his mathematical research, making his work not just an intellectual exercise, but also something imbued with a sense of mystical power. Ramanujan's intense passion for mathematics was something that others could hardly replicate. While many would have been crushed by life and abandoned their dreams, he was so poor he could only use temple floor tiles as a blackboard, yet he still held on to his chalk. Whether it was the goddess in his dreams or his unwavering self-discipline, he managed to make discoveries that left future mathematicians in awe. You could say this man, who couldn't even pass his exams, was able to meet with a goddess in his dreams and come up with world-changing formulas. What kind of luck and talent did it take to bring all of this together? His mathematical world was a fascinating blend of science and faith, with the chalk dust on temple tiles and the divine insights in his dreams all becoming part of his legendary story. A genius misunderstood, challenging the world's prejudices. Ramanujan's mathematical journey was a roller coaster ride, far from easy. In his small hometown, the villagers saw him daydreaming with numbers all the time, and no one could understand what he was doing. They would privately mutter that he seemed like a madman. Imagine this. He sat on the temple floor tiles, chalk in hand, drawing formulas, talking about things like infinite series and fractions. To others, it just sounded confusing, not realizing that this was a genius at work. His approach to research was wild and unorthodox, completely breaking away from traditional mathematical methods. There was no rigorous reasoning or formal proofs in his work. He didn't follow the usual steps. His formulas seemed like gifts falling from the sky, and even he couldn't explain why they were right. He would just pat his chest and say, "Trust me, this is correct." His non-traditional style left mathematicians of the time stunned, wondering if this kid was too casual. But Ramanujan didn't care about what others thought. He had an almost insane confidence in his intuition and inspiration, claiming that these ideas came from divine revelations by his family goddess, which sounded quite mystical. Holding on to this belief, he pushed forward with determination. In 1911, he finally wrote his first paper, discussing the properties of Bernoulli numbers, which caused a small ripple in the Indian mathematical community. Imagine him sending the manuscript, probably feeling both nervous and excited. When the paper was published, a few scholars were indeed impressed, thinking that this guy had something. Unfortunately, he had no formal education and no academic training. Even though his paper was striking, it wasn't taken seriously. The prominent mathematicians glanced through his work muttering, "The ideas are fresh, but the proof is too casual." Ramanujan, standing aside, probably just shrugged and thought to himself, "You don't understand, but I know it's right." Throughout his journey, Ramanujan persisted with sheer stubbornness. The people in his hometown thought he was mad, and the mathematical community criticized his unorthodox methods. Yet, he pressed on like a lone wolf, determined to keep calculating despite the criticism. When no one understood him, he figured things out on his own. When he had no paper, he worked on floor tiles. When no one supported him, he didn't give up. His first paper didn't make him famous overnight, but it was like a small stone thrown into a lake, creating ripples. His math wasn't taught in classrooms. It grew from intuition and faith, a wild and beautiful flower. Later, this madman became known worldwide, but who could have imagined that back then? The turning point of fate, meeting Professor Hardy. Ramanujan's mathematical journey had a dramatic twist. that propelled him from the rural villages of India to the global stage. One day, he received a letter from England, sent by the renowned Cambridge mathematician, Professor G.H. Hardy. Hardy was a major figure in the academic world, known for his sharp intellect, and he usually held high standards. But when he opened Ramanujan's manuscript, filled with wild and unconventional formulas, even he couldn't help but be amazed. Imagine Hardy sitting at his desk, his glasses slipping down his nose, holding Ramanujan's letter and murmuring, "Where did this genius come from?" He immediately recognized that this wasn't just ordinary talent, but a treasure waiting to be discovered. The letter was like a ticket to a bigger world, landing in Ramanujan's hands and signaling a new beginning for his life. While the opportunity was enticing, the challenges behind it were no joke. Though Ramanujan was a Brahmin, his status in his poverty-stricken hometown was not high. The idea of leaving everything behind and going to England was like stirring up a hornet's nest. At that time, caste traditions in Indian society were as heavy as a large stone, and it was a huge taboo for a Brahmin to travel abroad. People would have been shocked and whispered that he was abandoning his ancestral customs. His elders in the family were likely furious, and neighbors might have been gossiping, wondering if he had gone mad by leaving a good life behind to go to a foreign land. Ramanujan himself was nervous, as leaving his small town for cold and distant England, with language barriers and cultural differences, seemed like a huge gamble. However, Ramanujan didn't make the decision lightly. He turned once again to his old friend, the family goddess. For months, he prayed and meditated, dreaming each night of the goddess visiting him and speaking with him. Finally, one night, the goddess nodded in his dream as if giving him a passport to proceed. With that, Ramanujan steeled himself and decided to take the leap. This was no easy decision, like jumping off a cliff and hoping there was a net below to catch him. As he packed his bags, Ramanujan must have been both excited and anxious, clutching Hardy's letter in his hand, his mind filled with uncertainties about the future. He knew that once he left, there would be no turning back. But the call of mathematics was too strong, and with the goddess's approval, what was there to fear? And so, armed with a wealth of self-taught formulas and boundless passion, he left the rural village of India for Cambridge, embarking on a new chapter of his life. The academic path in England, glory and struggles. In 1914, Ramanujan finally gathered the courage, with the blessings of his family goddess, to board a ship heading to England. After a rough journey, he arrived at the University of Cambridge. This was the grand moment of his life, transitioning from rural India to the academic Holy Land, ready to collaborate with the renowned Professor G.H. Hardy. Imagine this. He stepped off the ship, his feet touching English soil, dressed in ill-fitting old clothes, his hair disheveled by the sea breeze, but his eyes sparkling with excitement. Hardy, ever the thoughtful mentor, treated him like a big brother, helping him settle in and offering constant support. But don't think that just arriving at Cambridge meant everything was smooth sailing. Ramanujan's mathematical journey still faced challenges. His research was unconventional, with dazzling formulas that went on for pages, but his proofs were sparse, and he didn't follow traditional methods. Some old scholars in the academic community looked at his work, sniffed in disdain, and called him a fraud, dismissing his writing as if it were some cryptic scripture, with no solid foundation. When these remarks reached Ramanujan, it must have felt like he'd bitten into a sour lemon. But who was Ramanujan? He wouldn't be knocked down by such cold stares. When Hardy saw him, he realized this kid had potential and shouldn't be left to fade into obscurity. So he patted him on the shoulder and said, "Come on, let's catch up on some lessons and learn some proper stuff." And just like that, Hardy took him to basic math classes, teaching him how to organize his wild ideas in a structured way. Imagine Ramanujan sitting in class, surrounded by proper British students, diligently taking notes, occasionally sneaking a glance at the proof steps on the blackboard, while his mind kept turning with his own formulas. Though a bit awkward at first, he picked things up quickly, as if he had a turbocharger in his brain, gradually working through the systematic math knowledge. Over time, he even began to blend into the Cambridge atmosphere, learning to chat casually with people, occasionally sipping a cup of tea at gatherings, listening to the professor's lofty discussions, while quietly encouraging himself. His collaboration with Hardy proved to be a huge boost for Ramanujan. When the two of them worked together, sparks flew, and they produced a series of groundbreaking results. Those scholars who had once looked down on him gradually realized that his formulas weren't nonsense. They could actually solve major problems. Their attitude shifted from skepticism to cautious approval. Ramanujan went from being called a fraud to firmly establishing himself. And it wasn't just his natural talent that got him there. It was also Hardy's encouragement and his own refusal to give up. Those years at Cambridge were like a new buff to his mathematical career, transforming him from a country prodigy into a rising star in the academic world. Mathematical breakthrough, 1729, and the final moments of life. Ramanujan, the mathematical prodigy, was far more than just a theorist buried in equations. His sensitivity to numbers was almost like having a superpowered radar. One time, while chatting casually with Professor Hardy, the conversation unexpectedly turned to numbers, and Ramanujan suddenly lit up, mentioning the number 1729. He called it the most interesting number in his mind. Hardy probably didn't catch on immediately, thinking, it's just a 4-digit number. What's so special about it? But Ramanujan went on to explain that this number could be expressed as the sum of two cubes, 12 superscript 3 plus 1 superscript 3 equals 1729, and so does 10 superscript 3 plus 9 superscript 3. The number seemed like a plain box hiding a hidden treasure, ordinary on the outside, but containing magical coincidences within. Picture Ramanujan saying this, with a smile on his lips and his fingers gesturing in the air, almost as if he were dancing with the numbers. This story later spread and became a signature example of his genius, with even Hardy unable to resist praising how differently Ramanujan saw numbers. The story of 1729 wasn't just a flash of brilliance from Ramanujan's mathematical mind. It also became a classic little episode in the final moments of his life. Unfortunately, the road of genius always seems to be too fast, and he didn't get to fully enjoy his brilliance. Just as things were beginning to stabilize at Cambridge, with breakthroughs coming one after another, tuberculosis, an uninvited guest, came knocking. The disease arrived aggressively, stealthily sapping his strength. Ramanujan's frail body, already weakened, couldn't withstand it for long. Imagine him lying in a sickbed, the gray skies of England outside the window, his face pale, yet his mind likely still turning with numbers and formulas. Hardy and other friends came to visit, watching him grow weaker with each day, their hearts aching. In the end, the mathematical magician couldn't defeat the illness and quietly passed away, leaving behind a pile of unfinished problems and a world full of regret. Though Ramanujan's life was short, his mathematical legacy burned brighter as time went on, like a torch that only grew stronger. The story of 1729, along with his work on infinite series and fractional theory, would later be endlessly studied by mathematicians, with an influence that seemed boundless. His formulas were like treasures buried in the world of numbers, waiting for future generations to uncover. From the stone floors of rural India to the lecture halls of Cambridge, and to his final glance from a sickbed, Ramanujan left an indelible mark on mathematics with his brief yet unforgettable life. Ramanujan's legacy. When it comes to the mathematical genius Ramanujan, though his life was as short as a shooting star, its brilliance was so intense that it left everyone transfixed. Starting from a tiny, impoverished town in rural India, with no formal education to speak of, he broke into the world of mathematics purely through self-study and a mind that was utterly obsessed with numbers. Imagine him on the temple floor, chalk in hand, drawing formulas, his mind filled with infinite series and magical numbers, while those around him thought he was just a weirdo. Yet, the things he calculated later had Nobel laureates bowing their heads to study them. His notebooks were like treasure maps, filled with dizzying formulas and unsolved riddles, and mathematicians, flipping through them, were stunned. How in the world did he come up with this? Even today, those yellowed notebooks remain a goldmine for research, with future generations holding them up as if conversing with genius across time. Ramanujan's influence was far more than just a few formulas. He sparked the passion of countless mathematicians, with unsolved problems scattered like torches, urging others to pick them up. His ideas were so wild that even the big names in the field said, "No one can keep up with this guy's train of thought." To honor him, the Ramanujan Prize was created, becoming the highest honor in the global mathematics community. Those who win it are the ones who, like him, can play with numbers in extraordinary ways. Today, Ramanujan is not only remembered as a mathematical genius, but also as a symbol of Indian culture and science. His hometown beams with pride whenever they mention him, saying, "He's our pride." His story has spread worldwide, and even children know that this skinny Indian man, with nothing but chalk and dreams, rewrote the history of mathematics. Ramanujan's life was, in essence, the perfect mix of faith, persistence, and talent. He had no money, no background, and couldn't even pass university exams. But he trusted his intuition, trusted the family goddess that appeared to him in dreams. Every time he hit a wall, he prayed and meditated, and then, like a flash of lightning, the answer would come. His legend teaches us a lesson. No matter how tough life gets or how low your starting point is, as long as you have the tenacity to keep fighting, you can achieve something great. From the most interesting number 1729 to those mind-bending series, he proved, in just 32 years, just how extraordinary one person can be. Every time we revisit his story, it fills us with excitement. This guy wasn't just doing math. He was calculating life's miracles. The next time you talk about him, don't forget to mention this warrior of dreams, who, from temple floors to Cambridge, from doubt to immortality, made an incredible comeback that's impossible not to admire. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on this often forgotten genius? Share your comments below. If you enjoyed this show, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.